The seeds of defiance in the segregated South. The story of Jesse Louis Jackson began not in the halls of power, but in the humble, divided city of Greenville, South Carolina. In 1941, born Jesse Louis Burns. His early life was defined by the sharp sting of the Jim Crow South and the complex social dynamics of his birth. Raised by his mother, Helen Burns, and his stepfather, Charles Jackson, young Jesse was acutely aware of the colored signs that dictated where he could walk, eat, and breathe. However, even as a boy, he possessed a restless energy and an unmistakable charisma. He was a star athlete and an exceptional student, but more importantly, he was a witness to the indignities suffered by his community. These early experiences didn't break him. They forged a steel-trap resolve to dismantle the very walls that sought to contain him. From the gridiron to the frontless Jackson's journey toward national leadership took a pivotal turn during his college years. While he initially attended the University of Illinois on a football scholarship, he soon returned to the South, transferring to North Carolina A&T State University. It was here that the athlete became an activist. Immersed in the burgeoning civil rights movement, Jackson began organizing sit-ins and marches, catching the eye of the movement's most prominent figure, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. By the mid-1960s, Jackson had joined the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, SCLC, and was handpicked by Dr. King to lead Operation Breadbasket in Chicago. This initiative was revolutionary. It used the economic power of black consumers to force white-owned businesses to hire black workers and stock products from black-owned companies. It was Jackson's first major masterclass in economic justice, the manner of leadership, and the Rainbow Coalition D. Assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in 1968 was a cataclysmic event that left a void in American leadership. In the aftermath, Jackson emerged as a fiery, eloquent successor to the dream. In 1971, he founded People United to Save Humanity, PUSH, later PUSH-XL, in Chicago. His mission was to motivate black youth to achieve excellence and to continue the fight for economic parity. However, his vision soon expanded beyond the black community. He realized that the struggle for justice was a rainbow coalition, a tapestry of the poor, the marginalized, the working class, and minorities of all backgrounds. This philosophy became his trademark, arguing that while we all came over on different ships, we were all in the same boat now, challenging the White House 1984 and 1988 perhaps. Jackson's most daring contribution to American history was his two historic runs for the presidency of the United States. In 1984 and again in 1988, he did what many deemed impossible. He ran a credible, high-energy campaign that registered millions of new voters. His 1988 speech at the Democratic National Convention remains one of the most powerful pieces of American oratory, where he famously repeated the mantra, "Keep hope alive." He didn't just run for office, he shifted the American political landscape, proving that a black man could command a national following and forcing the Democratic Party to address the needs of the disposable people, the factory workers, the small farmers, and the urban poor. A global statesman and peacemaker beyond the borders of the United States, Reverend Jackson became a shadow Secretary of State. He possessed a unique brand of street-level diplomacy that allowed him to walk into rooms where official diplomats were barred. In 1984, he negotiated the release of captured Navy Lieutenant Robert Goodman from Syria. He traveled to Iraq to secure the release of hostages held by Saddam Hussein and journeyed to Cuba to meet with Fidel Castro. His work in South Africa was instrumental in the fight against apartheid, and he stood as a close ally to Nelson Mandela. Jackson's life became a testament to the idea that peace is not just the absence of war, but the presence of justice. The twilight years, a legacy secured in his later years, even as he faced the physical challenges of Parkinson's disease. Jackson's voice remained a clarion call for the disenfranchised. He transitioned from the front lines of the march to the role of an elder statesman, mentoring a new generation of leaders including a young community organizer in Chicago named Barack Obama, the news of the Chicago service at the House of Hope, attended by Presidents Biden, Obama, and Clinton, serves as a final grand coronation. It signifies that Jesse Jackson was not just a leader for Black America, but a foundational architect of the modern American conscience. The final chapter, Crossing the Jordan, as we reflect on the totality of his life from the segregated schools of South Carolina to the podiums of the United Nations. We see a man who lived multiple lifetimes in one. His death marks the end of an era, but his rainbow remains. He taught a nation that the measure of a society is how it treats its most vulnerable. He showed that words could be weapons of peace and that hope is not a passive wish, but an active, muscular force. As the three presidents gather in Chicago, they don't just mourn a man. They honor a movement that transformed the United States from a country of us versus them into a more perfect, though still striving. Union.Gemini said the global statesman, diplomacy beyond borders as the domestic struggle for civil rights matured. Reverend Jackson's vision crossed oceans, transforming him into a shadow Secretary of State for the voiceless. His brand of street-level diplomacy was born from a belief that peace is not merely the absence of tension, but the presence of justice. In 1984, defying the skepticism of the Washington establishment, he traveled to Syria and successfully negotiated the release of captured U.S. Navy Lieutenant Robert Goodman. He repeated such feats in Iraq, securing the freedom of hostages held by Saddam Hussein, and in Cuba, where he sat across from Fidel Castro to advocate for political prisoners. His impact on the global stage was perhaps most profound in South Africa. Jackson was a relentless crusader against the brutal system of apartheid, using his platform to mobilize international sanctions that eventually crippled the regime. When Nelson Mandela finally walked out of Victor Verster prison, Jackson was there to embrace him, a meeting of two titans who had both proven that moral clarity is more powerful than any prison wall. He showed the world that a private citizen, armed only with a mandate from the people and a commitment to human rights, could move the needle of history. The twilight years and the passing of the torch in his later years. Even as his body began to feel the heavy toll of Parkinson's disease, Jackson's spirit remained unyielding. He transitioned from the fiery orator on the front lines to a sagacious elder statesman. He became a bridge between generations, mentoring a young community organizer in Chicago named Barack Obama, who would eventually stand on the shoulders of Jackson's 1980s campaigns to reach the highest office in the land. Jackson's presence at the House of Hope in Chicago, flanked by Presidents Biden, Obama, and Clinton, serves as the final grand coronation of a life lived in total service. As the sun sets on this historic journey, the legacy of Jesse Louis Jackson is not found in buildings or statues, but in the millions of voters he registered, the doors of corporate America he forced open, and the global consciousness he awakened. He taught a nation that the rainbow is not just a symbol of diversity, but a blueprint for power. From the red clay of South Carolina to the global stage, he remained a man of the people. His life's work ensures that even in the darkest hours of injustice, the cry will forever echo, "Keep hope alive."